So I'd like to start off with the slide that Bhaumik has ready for us. How do I know that I am growing? So the bullet points below are loneliness, aloneness, purging of emotional trauma, stuck and confused, depression, disconnected from society, lack of emotions and sentiments, and feeling mature. I just want to start off so everybody has a glimpse of this, they know what is about to come. Everything, this is what science has said, right? Everything that we live and that we operate in this world is based upon a structure of the human mind, on society, on the ways that we're able to think in order to interact with the world, in order to understand it and take part in this existence. And so we have to come up with some kind of structure within our mind to take part in that, to actually interact and function in the world, right? That's why we have taxes. That's why we have government. That's why we have societies. That's why we have technology, right? There are different ways of human thinking, right? It's a construct made by the mind in order to perceive a reality and live in it, to operate in it. And so what happens is when you're living within this structure, over time it can become so powerful. It's not the power behind it, but it seems so powerful, right? It seems like it has a hold on everything, the very fabric of reality, like this is how it is. And that's why I say sometimes more education, sometimes, people who, are textbook savvy, who have read everything, who have all the knowledge that is available to them, are sometimes the most closed off to the unknown, to, the nature of eternity, of God. It's because they've developed this intrinsic structure of how life and reality is. And they're not able to break apart from that. They're stuck within their perception, but the thing is, their perception is so strong, they perceive it as this is reality. Right? It's not even the awareness that this is my perception of the world, or this is a perception, this is the world. What happens when you have someone who is connected, like Guruji is, who is literally enlightenment flowing from him to you? It develops your awareness and your psyche. That's what causes changes within your perception. You gain empowerment from being around a being like this, especially when you behave appropriately. When you take the teachings, you use this energy and you use it to propel and empower yourself further. It's not a one-sided thing. Both of you take part in your growth. But you ultimately use this energy that he gives you. It's very difficult to do anything, to even change the structure of the mind without someone transmitting energy to you, this blessing. So when you have this empowerment of eternity, of God, empowering your mind, bringing you to a new state of awareness, or giving you the awareness of the very fact that you're operating on a structure of the world. Just that alone, just having the awareness, you're already doing so much better than a majority of the people on this planet. Because the majority of the people on this planet aren't even aware of what they're aware of. They're not even aware of what they're thinking or feeling. They just run rampant. So when you gain this awareness, you have an opportunity through this blessing to actually restructure your world. Science is the most obvious example of, the structures of the mind, of empirical, thinking, of logic and reasoning. And you do need logic and reasoning. It's what you need to function in the world. You need something there, a part of the empirical, a part of logic, a part of reasoning, in order to operate on this planet as a functional human being without just completely going insane. Right? You need some sense of wit, of intelligence, and discrimination. That propels you on your journey towards God and enlightenment. You need that. But you don't need it to the point in which it becomes all-inclusive, in which that's all that there is. So when you see science, you see the extremity of logic and reasoning, but it comes to the point in which it's like, you get a theory or a hypothesis, but it's so accepted by the community as this is truth. This is reality. You cannot create matter. You cannot, break this law. This is how the universe and nature operates, and nothing can exist beyond that. But what is science? Science is humanity's understanding of nature. Science is a structure that people have created in order to interpret and understand the nature that we live in. So even then, it's not your interaction with truth, it's an interpretation of truth. It is a way to explain it and in a way to limit that explanation of, the confines of eternity. Right? How can you explain that which is unexplainable? And this is the extraordinary thing that Guruji is doing, is that through science, the reasonable, the logical, the empirical mind, he is proving the existence of the expansive unknown. But that's why so many scientists have such a hard time accepting that. Even though it shows up right in front of their face, like, Guruji's able to change the structure of the atom. That's not supposed to be possible. If you're stuck within this structure, you don't have the awareness, the presence of mind. You're stuck in that all-inclusive reality. Then for you, it is impossible. It literally is impossible for you, because that's your reality. But then you have those beautiful scientists, like one of the scientists you're about to meet today, who, understanding that science is just an attempt to understand our world and how we exist in it, how everything interacts with one another, in order to further propel us to a new state of humanity. Right? It's the fundamentals. He knows the fundamentals of truth. He has that awareness, that ability to see, that presence, to understand that there's a possibility of something more. And what Guruji does is when he, is able to do these extraordinary things and prove it with science, what that does for the logical mind is it kind of puts a spot for the unmanifest, that which is beyond explanation, that which is, beyond understanding, beyond reasoning, and gives it reason. He gives eternity a place within rational mind. And that acts as a doorway. It's still limiting the existence of God. So long as you, put a concept or belief or an idea around it, it's a limitation. But the thing is, it's beneficial because even though there's a limitation, it's still an idea that the rational mind can comprehend. And by allowing that glimpse, it opens a whole doorway for your consciousness and your awareness to enter into that realm of the unknown. See, you need both. And so what I see with a lot of people is that, especially so-called spiritual people, they come thinking that, they can just abandon the world, abandon their minds, so to speak, abandon all logic, reason, thought. They just want to, exist in this state of, oh, life is wonderful, everything's so blissful, I'm so happy, I don't need to worry or be concerned about anything, and kind of like a fairyland, right? We call it woo-woo spirituality, right? Where did that come from? It came from all the logical, reasonable people trying to understand what woo-woo is. But you need both. You actually can't advance in the realm of the unknown without having a reference point to go there. A lot of spiritual people think that they shouldn't have attachment or desire. They shouldn't have, the need to have money, for example. That's a common one. Or maybe, they're avoiding sex. There are so many things that spiritual people are avoiding. The thing is, everything is spiritual. Every single thing in this world is spiritual, and every single thing is neutral by nature. There is no positive or negative charge to anything, right? There's no positive, connotation for money. There's no negative connotation for money. It's just money, right? It's energy. And in the world that we've established, you need money in order to be able to do things. So use it. But the problem is either people get so attached to wealth that, if anything happens, it ruins their happiness. Or they're so aversive to wealth that they're willing to live in poverty and suffer at the extent of their own enlightenment. Because you can't become enlightened and be miserable. What matters is your purpose in doing so. Why are you earning money? Why are you seeking the attention of the world? What is your purpose? What's your path? What is the way for you? If you're seeking to get more money in your life in order to leave a lasting impression on the world, in order to pay back society, in order to contribute something worthy, worthwhile, in order for you to reach your own enlightenment, because there's nothing bigger than that. I don't care what you're doing with your life. There's nothing bigger than that. Then use money for that. It's not wrong to do so. What is wrong is our idea that it's wrong. So the descriptors of the world, what we're, focused and attached on, it's kind of like hooks, like anchors that prevent us from moving freely. Right? Whether it's, an attachment, a desire for something. Because what is desire? Desire is just, even if you achieve the desire, that which you want, it's just going to turn into another desire. Or maybe even the desire that you've built up all this, romantic idea about, that, oh, my life is going to be so wonderful once I get this car. And when you actually achieve the desire, when you get the car that you want, right, it's less than satisfactory. You get bored with it. Right? The feeling goes away. Desire and excitement are interlinked. Like once you have desire, even if you get it, it'll go away. It's not something that can withstand. Desire just leads to more desire. It's an evolution of desire. So picture it like you're on this boat. Right? The boat is your structure of reality. It's you, it's the sense of self. It's your presence in this world. And if you look at it like you're on this ocean, which is the eternal nature of God, it is God. Right? So many people have this sense of separation from God. And I'm like, you're literally on the ocean. You're already there. You're in the presence of God, and yet you feel like you're not. That's because you're on a boat in the ocean. So there's this structure of reality that gives you a sense of separation, but you're still there. But what happens when you have so many different attachments, so many hooks, like different perceptions, descriptions of the world, ideas of how, living in life should be, especially for you, right? When you're selfish, when you're jealous, when you're angry, or, if you've gone through a really bad experience, a lot of emotional trauma in your life, so many different things. These are like anchors that keep you in place, keep you hooked on this one spot in your life. You feel stuck. One of the most common things that I see is people seek spirituality because they feel pain. They want a relief from their suffering. And I have one other question when I think of that is, if they understand that they're in pain, but they're seeking something else beyond that, that means they know. There's some part of you that is aware that there is perfection, that there is an escape from pain. The fact that you want something more in your life means that you know there's something more. You know there's this ecstatic state of awareness, this perfection, this reality that exists out there, that you are a part of, that is as expansive within you as is the universe. But the only problem is we have all these anchors hooked into past ideas, experiences. And a lot of people, when they finally find a teacher, or, they live in an ashram, they run away from society, they live in this, spiritual atmosphere, they kind of think that life will take them there. Like there's no self-effort involved. Like just the fact that they made it there is enough. And Guruji says this all the time. God doesn't need you. You need God. Right? God is in this perfect bubble of awareness. Well, bubble of infinity, so it's not really a bubble. But everywhere, you are already within that, but you are the bubble. You're the ship, the anchor that's separate, that perceives this suffering, that thinks things aren't going the way it should. This isn't right. Everybody acts like a damsel in distress waiting for Prince Charming to climb up the tower and rescue them. You just open the door and walk down the stairs. Why should God have to bring itself out of this state of perfection to take part in your imperfect life? Compassion is something that we've perceived of God. It's our own projection on what God is. That's not to say that there's something wrong with compassion. It's good to be caring about others because ultimately it's all God, right? There's no separation. You're caring about others, you're caring for yourself. When you feel bad when you're caring for others and you're not taking care of yourself, that's, the discord in the perception. And you don't care for others because you feel like that person needs your help. Or because you feel like you're doing anything, out of your own capability to help that person. Whatever that person is receiving in their life, sure, handouts, grace of God, beings coming in and helping and assisting, that does happen, but you shouldn't be dependent upon that to happen all the time. If it does happen, it's a miracle, and if it doesn't happen again, it's fine. because it's not the expectation. You don't do anything out of the goodness of your own heart, out of your own highly spiritual nature to help another person. That person is receiving that help because that person has done something to be in that deserving state of awareness to receive that help in the first place. You didn't do anything. God through you did something, but there's nothing so special about you that either you're worthy enough that you're, God for this person, that you're here to help them and to uplift them yourself. And neither are you unworthy. The thing is, even unworthiness, it's still all about you. Even when you're thinking you're unworthy. How can I be so worthy to, have this gift to be able to do something extraordinary? That's just undermining the divine. It's not about deservingness, because it's not about you. It's just God. You're a witness to God. That's it. And whatever happens, be it bad or good, it's fine because you're in that perfection, that state of reality that nothing can really go wrong. When there's no flexibility, another fundamental. What happens to that boat when it's in, this big storm in the middle of the ocean? If a boat has anchors in the water and it doesn't have a motor running on its own, it doesn't have its own engine, what happens to the boat? It becomes capsized. It loses control of life. Right? Everything it once thought to be reality is suddenly turned upside down. They hit rock bottom, everything goes wrong. They experience this misery, loneliness. All these things happen. It's because you had so many anchors stuck there. You weren't flexible enough to move with the nature of the water. Just because it's in turbulent tide, it's not like, divine's angry and trying to punish you because you're not, in a way it is punishment, but it's like you're punishing yourself. Because just lift up the anchors, let go. There's a reason why there's a phrase that says, let go and let God. Your inflexibility is keeping you stuck in this spot, so even when there's a shift or change in your life, you can't move with it. And so what happens? You break apart. What happens to buildings when there's an earthquake? The buildings that withstand earthquakes are the ones that are designed to move with the vibrations of the earthquake. The ones that are rigid, that are built to stand tall and strong without any flexibility, that have a defined structure that allows no room for change, are the ones that fall down. The ones that are designed to move with the earthquake. And sometimes it can be quite frightening if you're in the building, you feel the whole building swaying back and forth, and you think this can't be good, but it's actually an intelligent design by nature. The point is not to force your reality into nature or on nature. The point is to adapt and not be too attached to the outcome. To use this empowerment, this gift from God, to transform yourself, to evolve through your own self-effort. But if things go wrong, you don't kill yourself over it. And if things go wonderfully, wonderfully right, great. You want to have all the anchors lifted off, so that finally, when the turbulent seas are over with, when there's calm and peace on the ocean, you can just set sail. You are alone on this planet. But you should never feel lonely. I mean, God is already with you. There's no absence of God. That means that God would lack in some way if there was an absence of God. And God does not lack. God is perfection. So what do you have to do? You have to try and uplift yourself through God's grace to that perfection. Everything you do it with perfection. Right? You're given willpower. This energy gives you willpower. I know that. It gives you the strength to take action. Those who don't take action are the ones that lose themselves and go insane. Those that don't use this energy to motivate and propel themselves, to inspire themselves towards enlightenment, just get lost. Guruji gave the best example that, people before coming here, right? This is back to the growth. How do I know I'm growing? A lot of people, when they come here initially, the majority of the people are so clouded in their judgment, in their reasoning, in their ability to see and understand the world. And that could only happen when you're so clouded within your own ability to feel yourself. It's like, everybody is under anesthesia. Everybody's drugged up. The reason why, Guruji talks about it like a lot of low-conscious people, are very fascinated with entertainment, like watching television, idols, different things like that, getting involved in, the neighbor's drama instead of focusing on your own problems. Talking about, I can't believe, this person wore that to the Oscars. Instead of, who cares? But they need something because they can't feel anything. They're so drugged up. They're under that constant state of unawareness. So if you can't feel God, you need to feel something, right? You need to have something to feel alive, because your soul, while it might not be communicated to your consciousness, to your awareness, your soul knows. Your soul knows what truth it is. Your soul knows why you're here on the planet, right? It knows the existence of God. But you're not able to see clearly because you're so covered. There's no other way to put it. And so what happens when you're in this energy, it's literally like a sledgehammer, sometimes quite literally. And when it starts breaking this apart, this ice, that you've learned to live in numbness all the time, and you start feeling something, well, what happens if you've been out in the cold for too long and you can't feel anything, and suddenly you start warming up and you start getting the sensation back in your fingers? You feel pain first. Because your soul's trying to tell you that there's something wrong. That's why you experience pain, because your soul knows that there's something more. It's trying to talk to you. It's trying to give you a glimpse at reality, but everybody doesn't understand. They lack the awareness to interpret what pain really means. All that pain means is that there's something more beautiful than that. It's an awakening. Most people, they end up on a spiritual path because they go through some sort of awakening. They have one glimpse, a moment of realization. Some people even will go through horrible, horrible car accidents. They'll have near-death experiences, and then they'll have a moment in which they had a glimpse of something beyond what they thought possible before, and from then on, their spiritual life begins. Their path actually starts. It's because within the logical, empirical mind, a doorway was created, one that was always there, but you never saw before. It's kind of like for a moment, divine opened the doorway, you saw something behind there, and then the wind pushed it closed again, and you're like, how do I open the door? You have to walk over, turn the handle, push it over. If you're unhappy, if you're frustrated, unsaturated, if you're angry, it's like what do people say in driving school? If you're angry, don't get in the car to drive. Why? Because you don't see clearly. You're so angry, your judgment is impaired. And it might feel like you're seeing things clearly, because for you, that state of mind is all-inclusive. If you're angry, you're not happy at the same time, right? When you're in one state of mind, it's all-inclusive, and that's all there is. Have you ever tried to make a child laugh when they're upset, when they have tears rolling down their snot bubbling up out of their nose? And then you just, make a joke, like just a silly, stupid joke that you know that they're going to laugh at. But have you ever just done that, just, in the middle of them crying or saying something, and you just, make a joke or say something funny, and then suddenly it's like, no, I don't want to be happy. I don't want to laugh at that. I want to stay in my misery. Like, I'm attached to this. This is what I'm attached to. But then you make the joke, and it's kind of like, well, it's kind of tempting to laugh. But no. I want to be miserable. Right? There's nothing joyful. There's nothing, fun about being miserable. But the thing is, you forgot what happiness is like when you're in that state. So it almost feels like a sacrifice, because what are you doing? You're sacrificing a part of yourself. You're giving away part of yourself that you're so attached to. You're saying that, no, this is my feeling. This is my experience of, being upset, and I want to feel it. I want to go through this, and I want to show the world that this is me. This is what I'm going through. I want people to sympathize with me, to have emotions for me. That I'm miserable. But then you get a little glimpse, so you're like, oh my God, what is that? No, don't go there. You're happy here. Wait, what's happiness? But when you finally are able to just let go, it's just like, it's gone. It literally disappears, and then you're laughing and smiling, and then you ask them, what were you upset about? And you're like, I have no idea. Or you might be able to remember it, but oftentimes when you're laughing and everything, there's no emotion attached to the thought, the experience. Enlightenment doesn't mean you lose track of all your experiences and all your memories. You still have the memories. You're still able to respond to situations based upon what you've been through in your life. You're able to, make educated, logical, and beyond logic itself, decisions in your life. You have that integrity and that sense of divine discrimination to know what to do and when to do it. But in regards to the experience that you might have gone through to learn that from, whatever pain you had, whatever loneliness, whatever anxiety, depression, anger, jealousy, anything that you went through, those actual feelings disappear. That's what the purging of emotional trauma does. When you're stuck with an experience and there's an emotion still behind that experience, you look back to that and then suddenly you get caught up in the past and you're crying and you're like, oh, my mother yelled at me, 50 years back, and that's why I'm like this. That's why I'm the way I am now. When in reality, you have a calm, steady mind. You have peace. So long as you don't have peace within you, you cannot see clearly. If you are not happy, you cannot see clearly. You should never make a decision based upon anxiety or depression, based upon anger. When you're overwhelmed with an emotion, you never make a decision. Because that's just the reflexes from the structure of the mind that you've created. Remember that structure that has no flexibility. That with the slightest push, it's going to crack and fall. When you're on this path and you actually have a divinely gifted teacher, your structure of reality literally changes. That's why the people around you change. That's why people come, people go. You attract new circumstances, new events in your life that you didn't even think possible before. You're like, my life is a school teacher, and this is what I do, this is who I am, this is the car I drive, this is the town I was born in, I was raised with this type of, class, this is who I am. I am good at this, I'm not good at that. And oftentimes these things literally change. Who you are changes. When you first gain that level of awareness, it can be painful because you see the dark parts of you. That exist. They do exist. There are dark parts within you, the shadow self, shadow selves. And to just ignore it, create a structure around your own world and saying, no, these parts don't exist, just this part exists, is to do yourself a great disservice. Because those shadow selves, right? It's also divine talking to you. It's just the presence of God. You use those parts to uplift yourself. You don't use them to shame yourself. When you're on the very basis, right? I'm talking like the fundamentals of learning truth and reality, right? Fear, shame, regret, those things are imperative. Right? It's part of the journey. You go through that, but once you've evolved to a point in which you know truth, right? You're working on yourself. You're doing what you can. You're making changes in your life as much as you need to pee. I'm talking about that. right? It's not even a doubt like, should I or shouldn't I? It's like, no, if you need to go to the bathroom, you get up and do it. When you need to make a change in your life, you just don't sit back and think maybe the feeling will go away. It just festers, it gets worse. You get up and do it. If you think that the pain and suffering, that you receive a blessing and your pain and suffering is just going to disappear forever, no. There's a difference between benefits and transformation. Benefits is an alleviation of the pain. Transformation is when the pain disappears. It's when you've evolved past the pain. With so many people, they need these things to tell them not to do certain things because their judgment is so clouded. Their perception of reality is so wrong, you can say, that they need some type of law and order, some control over their thoughts, their behavior, to tell them not to do certain things and to do certain things. So these shadow parts of yourself, this part that feels the shame and regret, the part that feels the pain, right? It's there to communicate something to you that you shouldn't do that. And so what do? In order to avert yourself from the pain of shame, you behave in a different way. You don't make that mistake again. Right? It's parts of the path of growth. You know that this causes pain. It starts off for me, right? Everything starts off with you. And that's fine, right? That's just how it is. That in order for me not to feel like this, I need to do something like this. Right? Don't put your hand on the stove because you did it yesterday and you came out with a nasty burn. If you did it again, that's just stupidity. Because you know it's just going to hurt and you're going to have regret. But here's the thing. When you've evolved to the point in which you can understand and see, right, the emotions that you're contributing, that you're putting on regret, that you're saying this is what regret and shame feels like, those emotions don't exist when you've evolved to that point of consciousness. Because then you just know that you need to do this. You know what the correct decision is. It's not a matter of avoiding misery anymore. It's just a matter of focusing on the truth, being absorbed in truth. And you do everything with love and caring. Because that's right. That's just how it should be. It's not how it should be, that's how it is. Why do we have speed limits? Why do we have police officers on the road? Why do we have stoplights? It's because so many people are so self-involved. And they're so numb to the world, to truth and reality, that there needs to be some level of control that those more evolved within society have figured out that, okay, there needs to be some structure because people are screwing up big time. Right? There's complete discord and chaos everywhere. Like people aren't following the speed limit, people are hitting pedestrians on the road, car accidents are happening. If there's no infrastructure, right, there's no sense of this is how it should be to maintain some level of harmony with another being on the planet. But nobody does that out of their own regard for another human's life. Or not a lot of people, I should say. Not a lot of people do that out of regard for, oh, if I do this, I could hurt someone. Or I could really inconvenience someone else's day. Instead, it's, oh, there's a police officer, you better slow down 10 more miles. Because I don't want to get pulled over and get a ticket. It's fear and punishment. The aversion of pain. That only happens when you're self-involved. When you have this anxiety, this depression, right, this fear, that can only happen when you're too involved within yourself. When you're not caring for others, when you're not self-giving. As you evolve in consciousness, then these decisions aren't made out of fear of getting a ticket, fear of paying a penalty, fear of punishment. You know, a lot of people come to religion because they want some kind of control, they want some kind of ritual and dogma that dictates how they should live their life, because beforehand their life was complete nuts. Right? They had no control. They had nothing to tell them, like, this is wrong. You shouldn't kill people. Right? You shouldn't steal from other people. Don't do that. Let me write it on a stone so you don't forget. Right? Don't take advantage of another man's wife or another woman's husband. Don't be envious of other people. It's just like common sense. But in a way, when you have people so numbed up and, you know, in large groups, it's just kind of like they're sheep. You just lose control. So that's why a lot of people end up coming to religion, so that they can have a relief of that pain and suffering. They can have something to help control their lives. But then eventually they expand themselves beyond that point, in which they can actually feel truth and know what the correct decision to do is. So part of growth isn't that you're going to not feel anything. Feelings and emotions are very different from each other. When you feel, that's your connection to your soul. You feel that this is the correct thing to do. And that feeling comes without an attachment to an emotion, without a judgment, without a fear of repercussion, without excitement. It's just, you now know that this is truth and this is what you need to do, that this is how things should be. So the more you perfect yourself, right, you're uplifting yourself to that which is already perfect. And then one day grace takes you and you're gone.